the Agile brand.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Composable Roadmap podcast, where we explore the cutting-edge strategies and technologies that are transforming the business landscape. In this series, we are diving deep into the realities of building a composable roadmap. Whether you're a business leader, a tech enthusiast, or someone eager to stay ahead of the curve, this podcast is for you. We'll be featuring interviews with industry experts. We'll be dissecting real-world case studies and offering actionable insights to help you implement these strategies. So get ready to unleash your potential and navigate the complexities of today's digital world with confidence. I'm your host, Chad Solomonson, and today we have an exciting episode lined up for you. Today's show is brought to you by BigCommerce. BigCommerce is a leading open SaaS and composable e-commerce platform that empowers brands and retailers of all sizes to build, innovate, and grow their businesses online. BigCommerce provides its customers sophisticated enterprise-grade functionality, customization, and performance with simplicity and ease of use. Tens of thousands of B2C and B2B companies across 150 countries and numerous industries rely on BigCommerce. Our guest today is Lance Owide. Lance is the General Manager of B2B at BigCommerce, where he leads the development and execution of strategies to empower manufacturers and distributors in creating world-class B2B buying experiences. Lance's background includes a successful career in investment banking, private equity, and founding his own tech startup, bringing a wealth of expertise in finance, entrepreneurship, and digital innovation to his role at BigCommerce. I'm very excited to have Lance on the show today. Lance, welcome.
Chad, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be talking all things B2B and Composable with you. Absolutely.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. So before we jump into the fun things around commerce and especially B2B, can you give our listeners a little bit of background about you and your journey that got you here today?
Yeah, sure. I have a little bit of a different journey, I think, within commerce. I'm not the commerce veteran of 15 years of some of the guests that you've had on. I started my journey in investment banking and in private equity. I can hear the boos coming from over here from the listeners. But I joined BigCommerce 3 years ago, and I really joined because I could see that this was where a huge amount of innovation was happening, in particular in B2B, right? Kind of before I joined, I could see that as of, today and 3 years ago, around 15% of B2B transactions were occurring through e-commerce. And every projection shows you that's going to double, triple over the next kind of 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And I just think that was an incredibly exciting opportunity to really grow a business, BigCommerce in this case, to be, a leader in that space and really take advantage of that shift that's happening. And so I joined BigCommerce 3 years ago. I'm the General Manager of B2B, which effectively means I'm responsible for the success of all of our manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers on the platform, thinking about, how do we go to market? How do we position ourselves? What's our product vision and our strategy, and how do we execute it? And also working with the partners the fantastic partners that we work with, our technology partners and our agency partners, to make sure that the customers that we have, those distributors and manufacturers, can be successful when they're on the platform, that we're giving them the right technology to succeed. And that actually kind of pretty nicely segues into kind of more of the composable type of discussion that we may end up having, and ensuring that everyone is using best of breed technologies to give the best buyer experiences that they can. But yeah, I sort of took a circuitous route into commerce, but have always been a tech fanboy from afar. Between private equity and BigCommerce, I kind of started my own business, developed my own app. Didn't have the exit that I was, hoping for, or the number of users and uptake that I think we all dream of when we first start a business. But I found a fantastic home at BigCommerce and a real calling and a purpose to drive the future of B2B e-commerce.
That's fantastic. Well, I know most of the clients I work with and partners, they appreciate entrepreneurs and how they think about the business and how they think about the market. So bringing that to BigCommerce is got to be a good thing.
Yeah, and all of our companies, all of our manufacturers, distributors, they were small businesses once. They were entrepreneurs, onesie, twosies, and we have many of those on our on our platform today. Founder led, still founder run, and they want to do the very best they can for their customers. And it's great to be working with them and meeting with them every single day.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Composable, and a lot of our customers are thinking about Composable, and they're thinking about how Composable commerce kind of feels like in their organization, what it might mean. Can you give a little bit of background on how BigCommerce fits into the Composable story, and really what makes BigCommerce different as customers start to think about Composable in their environment?
Yeah, of course. And it might be worth, obviously I come from the B2B background here, those manufacturers and distributors, and it's a little bit different in B2B than it is on B2C. And I kind of alluded to that at the beginning, right? We've got something like 40% of B2B businesses in the US that aren't actually transacting online yet. So they're a long way from Composable. They're a long way from getting to Composable. They just need to start selling online first and foremost. But at the sharp end of B2B e-commerce, composability, best of breed have been flavors, have been trends for some time, right? Right at the sharp end, those that are leading the way, they've been investing in Composable for a long time and building composable sites for a while. And the reason they've been doing that is because B2B businesses are complex by their very nature. They have complex workflows. They have lots of sales folks out and about in the inside sales, in-field sales. They've got lots of different systems of record. They're manufacturing. And bringing all of those complex systems together can be time-consuming, but is also imperative to providing a great buyer experience. You want to show live inventory across 180 warehouses. You want to ensure that you can have just-in-time delivery. You've got to ensure that the minute that customer hits order, that you're starting to manufacture that product. Bringing all of those systems together, and then on the front end, thinking about how am I going to have the right search, the right technical specifications. That's what matters from a B2B perspective, and actually bringing in best of breed technologies with a fantastic front end is sort of how many large B2B businesses are approaching that today. So at BigCommerce, we have been part of the Mac Alliance pretty much since its founding. We believe in those Mac principles. We believe in microservices. We believe in bringing best of breed technologies to commerce. And we play our part in that as the commerce engine, right? You may want a different search provider. You may want a different CMS. You may want to be running these different technologies, and we want you to be able to bring those together. And it's our job to build a set of open APIs that allows you to grab all of the data that you need to be able to build that great experience. And so we recently announced and launched something that we call Catalyst. Catalyst is our Next.js reference architecture for best-in-class composable. Super performant, 100 Lighthouse scores across the board. And we kind of componentized headless. We want to make it as simple and possible to build in a headless way. The problem with composable and headless has always been that it's complex, and you hear of builds taking a year and a half, and we just don't think that's how it should be. So we've built this Catalyst reference architecture to make it simple and easy to launch a headless store with pre-integrated partners out of the box, so that what can often take months can now be done, in weeks. And that's what we're really aiming for. And we've seen some fantastic results from both B2C and B2B businesses launching incredibly quickly on our Catalyst architecture.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest driver that I see across all of our customers that are moving to Composable is speed to market and being able to quickly stand up solutions. Do you have a couple of use cases or customers that spotlight that kind of that speed that you're referencing?
Yeah, for sure. I think speed and agility, bringing those together. So what we're seeing today is that large companies, we're talking everything from And we work with companies doing, 40 billion plus in annual revenue, down to those more mid-market companies. They want to get live incredibly quickly, improve ROI. Gone are the days of commerce project planning for 6 months, implementing for a year and a half, and finally I'm live. That just isn't going to cut the mustard anymore. We've got to get live incredibly quickly. And then on top of that, we need to be agile. Buyer demands are changing weekly, it seems. New technologies are arising every other day, and that's obviously especially true with AI. And so once you are then launched, you want to be agile and have the ability to change that experience on the fly and pull in new technologies. Nothing makes that easier than Composable. Often and this is true, I think, more in the B2B space than in B2C today, we're also seeing a lot of acquisition and roll-up strategies, both PE-backed and non-PE backed, but lots of acquisition. And so as you're acquiring companies inorganically or growing organically, you want to launch in new regions, you want to launch a new brand. How quickly can you do that from a Composable perspective? And so a lighting distributor just launched BigCommerce Catalyst B2B edition, and they did it in a matter of weeks. We're actually talking 3 weeks. They went from having no site spun up to new site ready and available for transacting. I mean, that kind of speed is incredible. And they did that with B2B edition, with our buyer portal, which I can talk more about, with all of our B2B functionality. We're talking quotes, invoicing, approval workflows with that speed. And now they have the agility to customize that as they like, kind of the crawl, walk, run. They're live with the site, they can transact, and now they'll keep iterating because it's so easy to do.
That is very exciting. It's very exciting for B2B customers to feel like they have I can say an easy button, because it's not easy. So, when you start thinking about these customers and hearing 3 weeks of a deployment, there's certainly going to be some integration challenges that come up, and being able to quickly identify what those may be and how you can get them onto this reference architecture quickly is critical. What are some of those challenges, so that as customers evaluate Catalyst and BigCommerce, what are some of those that you can support quickly, and how would you support them through the challenges?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, right? What I'm not saying there is that you can necessarily take your old antiquated ERP and fully integrate that in 3 weeks, right? No, these guys, modern ERP, already connected through iPaaS, very little work to do to get data flying back and forth. Actually already had a separate BigCommerce store in this case as well. So they'd built some of those connections. But to your point, right, we really advocate for a crawl, walk, kind of run implementation style for, in particular in B2B. I think this is less true in B2C, but in particular in B2B e-commerce. I think our manufacturers, distributors, when they come to us, often get kind of distracted by the most complex of requirements for their buyers.
Yeah.
And that might be, we need this really complex approval workflow and budgeting system for this one customer. They're our biggest customer. That's how it works. Today, they do it all through the sales team. And we sort of advise, look, that doesn't have to be your day one. That could be the third iteration of this project. What you want to do, first of all, is take all of the smaller mom and pop shops, those that are low touch, but actually generating reasonable sums of revenue, move those online. And then your sales team are freed up to spend more time working on that complex customer. And so number one is sort of taking that more phased approach to implementation. Don't go and try and, build the world from day one, especially for those businesses that, aren't transacting today. And then around the integrations piece, right? One, we've made it as simple as possible as, we can to integrate, because our APIs are open. They're not versioned. They don't change very often. And so you can plug into those APIs, whether that's, through a piece of middleware or through, an iPaaS, easily and pass data back and forth, assuming obviously on the other side you've got modern systems. And then we've also partnered with some of those key technology vendors out there to build pre-integrations into Catalyst. So on the search side, we have a number of search partners that are already pre-integrated and are, a one command line type integration. Obviously, it's never that simple, but pretty close. And we're inviting more and more of our tech partners to build those sorts of integrations. And so we're trying to make it as simple and as easy as possible. But again, we would say, look, if that integration isn't ready out of the box, let's discuss whether, one, how do we get it there? How do we work with that technology partner to get that integration built so it can be as simple as possible? And then two, is that needed in phase one? Could that be a phase two? Does that need to hold you back from launching, from proving you can take those orders, from showing ROI of the project? And again, I just to, for the audience, I know we've probably got a B2B and B2C audience. This is very B2B. This is the way B2Bs really do think versus B2C. So let's make incremental improvements, because if you see some of the sites I see, there's a long way to go to catch up to our consumer friends in terms of user experience.
Absolutely, and I guess that's, I want to dive a little deeper on these areas as far as the use cases, or maybe even within B2B, the verticals that you're seeing that are emerging, that are starting to take a stronger path towards that customer experience that a B2C, the buyers are having. Are there certain use cases you're seeing that are leading kind of the pull for more composability? Are you seeing search more? Are you seeing an invoicing efficiency play as far as a B2B customer is trying to drive that ease of transaction? Are certain ones emerging right now that you're seeing more and more?
Yeah. So sort of what are the trends and where are we seeing them? So I think first of all, breaking down manufacturing and distribution. Distribution have much tighter margins usually than the manufacturers. And so they are looking for ways to improve that, right? To claw back some of that margin through operational efficiency, sales team efficiency, etc. And so we see a lot more demand from the distribution side to make improvements to that front end that will then drive that back end improvement, right? And drive better margins. We are obviously still see lots of manufacturers moving online, but those more complex manufacturers who are building, complex configured products, some of those are still sat back there, happy to have their sales team keep taking those orders over the phone, through email, because they don't have the same sort of margin pressure today. And it would be a more complex task and ask to move some of that online. So then within those distributors, where are we seeing a lot of this, a lot of this drive? Automotive, huge, as well as kind of building materials. There are some really nice headless building material sites that have launched on BigCommerce recently. MKM Building Supplies out of the UK. Go and check out their site. It's fantastic. They are 120 independently owned building merchants, effectively, each with their own pricing, with their own inventory. It's all being displayed online. You can log in, you can see that inventory that's specific to the location you want to purchase from. You can then go and buy online and pick that up in store, reserve it. And then all of those invoices from those purchases are flowing online and being paid online in a way they've never had before. And so they've built an incredible user experience and are driving customers online. And it's not like they didn't have a site before. They did. Their customers just didn't like it. It didn't display the product information that they needed when they needed it. And so your question was also, what are they doing? They've built in working with a search partner to build personalized search. They were on presenting at one of our EMEA summits in London a few months back now, actually. And, they showed that when their customers hit the site and they start searching for a specific brand, I think DeWalt or Milwaukee was one of the examples they used, they then start to adjust that search. Those are the products I'm going to show you. I know that's your affinity now. You've bought the product. And so they are going to adapt the search experience and product experience based on my previous searches and also my previous purchases. And in particular, the example that they sort of show and talk about, I'm searching for a specific brand, right? I don't know about you, Chad, but for me, all of my tools at home, they're all Ryobi. Every single one. That's all I'm going to buy now. Like I'm bought in. I've got the rechargeable batteries. That's all I'm purchasing, and they know that's true for the majority of contractors out there. And so once they know the affinity that you have to a brand, why are they going to show you any other brand when you are searching for a power tool? They're not. And so that, it sounds so simple, right? But that actually is pretty market leading and thought leading in the B2B space. And then they've connected that across their entire kind of marketing stack. And so once you start searching for landscaping on their site, those are the emails you're going to see. Those are the text messages you're going to receive, etc. And so that experience is not just about e-commerce, but it's about the entire buyer life cycle, if you will. And it's a really great example of a really beautiful headless build on BigCommerce and building a personalized experience for their buyers.
When you talk about these experiences, who within the company is championing composability? Who are you seeing is making the business case back to the leaders of the business?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it really varies. And what we found is that it's often in B2B businesses, manufacturing and distribution, you've got a bit of a push and a pull. The pull is the technology teams and the e-commerce teams. They want to drive better experiences online, and they want to move orders online, usually at the behest of a CEO who understands the operational improvements, the sales team efficiencies that can be driven through an e-commerce channel, and then the improved conversion, right, through personalization strategies, etc., that we sort of spoke about. The issue is this is often butting heads with a sales team who may feel threatened by e-commerce and by automated order taking. And so you've got to bring the sales team along for the ride. But what we usually see the most successful businesses doing is sitting down with that sales team, helping them to write out the business requirements. You know, what are these buyer flows, these buyer journeys that are being taken? Once those are mapped out, it becomes quite clear to the e-commerce team and technology teams, yes, we can do that through a non-headless build on BigCommerce, a stencil build. That's our kind of page builder.
Right.
Or actually, no, if you want these experiences, we're going to have to build a headless experience. We're going to have to, get a CMS. We're going to have to think about this slightly differently. And so that's usually, so it's the technology teams, the e-commerce leaders that are driving the ask for composable, but it's coming from requirements that are driven by the customer. And I really think that's the right way to do it. If a commerce team just comes in and says, we want headless, they don't justify it. They don't have a good reason for wanting to build composable, to build headless. I think it can often get lost, and there's a little bit of more added risk there to that project that is hard to justify if you haven't understood the buyer requirements.
So when we have that initial kind of getting the requirements laid out, I know in our business we tend to do a bit of an art of the possible by trying to get a lot of people at the table and understanding kind of what that outcome could look like and really define it that way. Are you seeing more of those types of initial strategic engagements being the catalyst for change, where it's some sort of unified meeting where everyone comes together and says, yes, this is that, maybe that first low hanging fruit play that we can make to get a win, and then start to prioritize the additional requirements as the complexity gets a little bit more increased as well.
100%. But I would say that we see that approach in those that are successful. In those that aren't, they let everyone come to the table and throw everything in a ring, and the e-commerce leaders and technology leaders feel like they have to deliver everything. go away and try, and it can often, lead to a lot of churn, because it's difficult to meet all of those requirements. So 100% to your point, Chad, get everyone in that room, understand those requirements, but stack hands on the art of the possible and the art of phasing that approach. What's in phase one? What's in phase two? What's in phase three? Crawl, walk, run, always. We've got, on BigCommerce, we've got one of the biggest liquor distributors in Texas on the platform. We've got their B2B business. And I won't mention them by name, but they didn't quite stack hands with everyone before the project was launched. And they built a great site, but it was not a case of build it and they would come, because they hadn't aligned quite as they needed to with the sales team as to how they were going to get customers online and to actually start utilizing the new e-commerce front end. They're now going absolutely all gangbusters. I mean, they're taking orders throughout through their e-commerce site, and it's growing at an incredibly fast rate. But at first, they didn't have that alignment, and I think it's really important that you get that alignment first, so that everyone knows what's being delivered, knows the use cases that are being captured, but also, as importantly, what's not being captured, what's not being delivered in phase one, right? And so for us, that could be, for our customers, that could be, hey, in phase one, we're going to deliver reordering, CSV uploads, but we're not going to do invoicing and we're not going to do quotes. Phase two is going to be quoting. We're going to move quoting online, right? And we're going to integrate maybe a separate CRM. Maybe there's a HubSpot or a Salesforce we're going to integrate, or we're actually going to move everything onto B2B Edition, CPQ. And then in phase three, we're going to do invoicing. And then we're going to move all of the financing and invoicing online too. And taking that phased approach and aligning on that phased approach first, I think is really important.
Yeah, the buy-in on a roadmap that meets the budget requirements and the timeline requirements, and getting everyone to nod their head saying, yes, this is how we're going to approach this, is an area that a lot of customers don't think through how to take that initial step. And just, it's changed a lot of how we as a business have thought about our customers, and they really do want to hear the best practices, and they do want to engage in a way that successful businesses are utilizing to take their first steps. So it's changed the way that we've done business, because it's always been an implementation. Now it's no. We need to take a step back and get everyone together. And and it feels like more and more customers are embracing a strategy approach and being able to take that initial step to get everyone bought in before you go down some risky roads and maybe not have a success that you want. So being able to take that step back, is the whole basis of the podcast. It's a roadmap that really helps get everyone together and lead with the right outcomes in mind.
Right outcomes, and then defining those KPIs, right? What does success mean? And I think that success means very different things to retail businesses than it does to distributor business, than it does to manufacturers. But defining those up front is really important. It might be that you, in phase one, are actually only looking for sign up and usage and reordering, and you're going to set a target for the number of offline businesses, i.e. businesses that are just utilizing my sales team today and email today, the number of those that I can get placing an order online in the first 3 months. That's it.
Yep.
Because I know if I hit that, the burden I've taken off of my sales team, and therefore I can consider it a success. I'm not talking about improved conversion. I'm not talking about speeding up the payment of invoicing, nothing like that. Really simple. And actually, when you define those targets correctly and everyone stacks hands and understands the value of them, you don't then look back, once you've launched and gone live and are trying to then determine what does success mean. We've stacked hands beforehand, and we can all look back and say, yeah, that was successful. And we know we've driven to the right outcome, and that is going to have the business improvements that we set out for in the first place.
Absolutely. And then the more you and your team with the other integrators are building these reference components, it just speeds up everything else, and it makes it much more efficient once you know where you're going.
Exactly. And I'm not giving anything away here, but at our big summit in Americas, and we actually just had our recent one in Sydney as well, our Catalyst team and our MakeSwift team, and I can talk a bit more about what MakeSwift is, they stood up and showed that we will be able to launch a headless store directly from our control panel with effectively 2 to 3 clicks of a button.
It's amazing. Really.
And that is not really been done before. And then once it's up and running, having that reference, the reference architecture to start from, and then the pre-integration of the biggest, most important technology providers out there, making it so much faster for composable builds to get live. And that's so important.
That was kind of leading to my question around the future of B2B commerce and kind of getting your sense of what excites you, especially at BigCommerce, of what you see coming. And it sounds like you talked a little bit about that, but are there other things as well that have you pretty excited about the future of where all this is going?
There are sort of two ways I think about this. One is really the democratization of B2B e-commerce. If you go back 10 years, the kind of site that the largest distributors in the US had was just simply not achievable for those in the mid-market. They just couldn't get there. It would have cost millions of dollars and they didn't have the budget. But today we are bringing those tools to the mid-market. We built our B2B buyer portal based on hundreds of interviews of our customers. And in my mind, it is the best buyer experience for any e-commerce platform servicing B2B businesses. And that can be deployed out of the box onto a native stencil storefront, but also onto a headless storefront. It's effectively a React-based app that can be deployed onto any store. And that gives those mid-market businesses access to approval workflows for their customers, an invoice portal out of the box. That just wasn't possible, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And today it is. And we've brought that into the mid-market. And that really excites me. And what we're doing with Catalyst is making that available in a headless, composable architecture as well. And I think that opens up extra doors for those mid-market businesses where previously even managing a sort of, a composable stack was daunting. We're simplifying it. Then on the enterprise side, it's about customizability, right? Being able to build for your bespoke use cases, the bespoke ways that you sell, right? And that might be the way that quotes are taken, the way that they're responded to, the way that you service a product, warrantying the product, specific technical documentation, having that available at the fingertips of your buyers, et cetera, the way you customize the product, right? We're working with one of the largest golf brands in the world and their distribution business, the way that they are going to be customizing that, the club sets for the pros that are in the shop, giving them tools such that they can customize the entire set that they are selling to, the member of their club, and then having it sent but from the distributor themselves, rather than them having to hold the inventory. And the user interface that they've built for that is it's beautiful. It's an incredible experience both for the pro in the shop and the buyer. And I think building in those workflows are where we're going, taking more and more of the buyer journey and building it into the e-commerce experience, starting earlier and earlier along that journey. And I think with MakeSwift, which is our kind of new visual editor for headless storefronts, we're going to make it easier than it has ever been to build a headless storefront. If you want to take a component that is request for a quote and drag and drop that anywhere on your site, you can. At the end of the day, we're built as a set of microservices. And those we've built into a bunch of, React components that can be put anywhere on a headless storefront. And to me, that's really exciting. We work with some incredibly large brands, one of the largest manufacturers of construction materials in the world. They've grown inorganically. They have about 120 brands. Today, they run about 70 of them on BigCommerce. And each one of them has slightly different requirements for their online experience. They do everything from glass construction, glass manufacturing, to bits for planes, engines, and nuclear reactors, and everything in between. And what they've done is on BigCommerce is they've kind of built a reference architecture, if you like, a reference setup, and then deploying that across all of those 70 brands. Well, right now they've done that on Stencil. They've done that on our our Stencil theming. Mm-hmm. They're now going to move that into the headless world and into our buyer portal, which we've open sourced, by the way, so they have access to the entire code base. They build those components for the majority of those brands and then give them access to tooling that allows them to drag and drop those little React components anywhere in their site, customize it however they like. I mean, that's power that I don't think we've seen in B2B e-commerce before.
No.
The speed with which they could acquire a new brand and get them live on their reference architecture with their reference look and feel, with their reference integrations incredibly quickly, utilizing MakeSwift to allow them to build that site and customize it is truly revolutionary. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for that.
It's there are so many areas for B2B to make big steps, and this sounds all very, very doable and achievable for B2B in a way that will really start to enhance the overall experience for their customers and how they can win more business and grow more efficiently. So very exciting to hear everything that BigCommerce is doing and your vision of where this is going. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here at the end, and I always ask our guests, kind of on a personal note, as you know, as leaders in your business, and as someone that is thinking, and growing in their career, and is extending a lot of the knowledge that you have, sharing a little bit of what keeps you kind of at the top of your game, and what are some of the tips you might share with our younger listeners that are trying to achieve bigger things in their career. What are some areas that you might share to our listeners that will support that, and just giving some best practices on kind of how you stay at the top of your game?
Sure, I think there's a couple of BigCommerce. We have a saying, and it's called being ambitious. It should be obvious to everyone. It's being humble but being ambitious at the same time. And no matter the level of an employee at BigCommerce, we want everyone to stay ambitious. I'm here to learn. I can always learn something new, whether that's from someone at BigCommerce, one of our customers, one of our technology partners, one of our agency partners. And then I'm ambitious to take our vision to the maximum that we can, right? And so we stay incredibly humble for our customers, incredibly humble for our partners, always open to learning and learning new things, and then taking those learnings and driving for success. And I think that's really important. Always learning, always open to those new ideas, because that's where the future is going to come from. If you can learn something new, build that into your success, your roadmap, your plan, and we kind of drive and strive for that here at BigCommerce. And outside of that, I always like to kind of think of two things. One, never get too far away from your end customer. That might be an internal customer or a real customer of for us, that could be one of our manufacturers, distributors. And internally, if you're on a data team, maybe that's the sales team. Never stray too far from them. Make sure that you're spending the time to understand their requirements, their use cases. I try and spend as much time as I can on calls with our customers, hearing their feedback, learning from them, and ensuring that we're keeping their needs, their requirements at the heart of everything that we do. and never shy away from those hard conversations, right? There are always going to be unhappy customers, unhappy stakeholders, internally, externally. Have those hard conversations and learn from them. And that's, I think, how you can grow and improve and ensure that you're doing the best that you can for the business.
That's fantastic. Absolutely great advice. Lance, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a few weeks, and I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for sharing your vision for B2B commerce and where BigCommerce is going, and giving some great advice to our listeners. So thank you so much for the talk today.
Of course, Chad, thank you so much for having me on. And if any of your listeners want to learn more about BigCommerce, they can check us out at bigcommerce.com. Or if you want to find me on LinkedIn and you've got some questions, queries, I'll be happy to help and answer. If you're struggling with a B2B build, headless or not, composable or not, I'd love to have a conversation.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Lance.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the Composable Roadmap. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe. You can also access more episodes of the show and helpful resources at thecomposableroadmap.com. Until next time, lead boldly and keep building. Thanks, everyone.
The Agile Brand.
Hi, I'm Greg Kihlstrom, and thank you for listening to this podcast, which is part of the Agile Brand Podcast Network. As some of you may know, I'm the host of another successful podcast, The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, Apple's top-ranked enterprise marketing podcast. 3 times a week, I talk with C-suite leaders from world-leading brands and platforms about the latest trends, issues, and challenges in marketing technology, AI, and customer experience. Be sure to subscribe so you too can join the thousands who have already followed to hear us discuss the top issues and challenges you need to know about, and get real-world insights and advice which you can quickly apply to your biggest marketing challenges. Check out the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast wherever you listen, and make sure to follow or subscribe so you can catch the very latest.